say that it feels right.
What's up, guys? It's the Blender, and today we're back in Cyberpunk 2077 with our build guide for our upcoming series of slicing through Night City. I'm trying to get the build guides out basically after the character's done, but while I'm editing and still putting out the episodes for, or creating the episodes for the actual playthrough. That way you have access to the guide as soon as possible. With that being said, the faster we get through this, the faster we get done. But I will go through the build. It's going to be a little bit in depth, and because I kind of get in the weeds. But at the end of the video, I'm going to showcase and I have two tips basically for your playthrough. So if you want those, skip to the end, or watch the whole video, right? Either or. But without further ado, let's get into it. Character. This is a Blades character. I take armor, and chemical resistance, and then net hacking, or quick damage resistance. This could be better, obviously. This is terrible at 11%, but it only goes to 15%, and we're generally not getting quick hacked because everything's dying, so who cares? With that being said, I chose armor rather than melee damage resistance because melee characters aren't necessarily what kill me, right? And so the armor at least is applicable across both. With that being said, you sort of pick your favorite in what you want, right? Like we got a katana plus a 5++ with 2 empty mods. We got a machete, which is the razor ++ with 2 empty mods. This one's super rare, and then Sumitogi we can use for electrical. I use electrical mantis blades, so I can use those to kill robots as well. Byakuya is good, though technically the katana with double cyclone is better mobber, right, and probably a better bosser as well. Byakuya is just really has a really interesting and niche way to use it for like get that first kill and then just kind of go ham. Now this is a 20%, but this is based off kill rather than based off sprint, right? And it doesn't scale. Like once it happens, right? Whereas this takes several attacks to get there and whatnot. So for like something like Don't Fear the Reaper, I prefer there's a specific room where I need to kill a bunch of enemies. I prefer using Byakuya because I kill the first one right off the bat, and then I can murder the next 3 all in succession, right? Super fast, right? I could do that with this one, but I'd have to do a sprinting attack, and all right, it can sort of get a little wonky. But it's possible. This might be a good option there. But you can also put airstrike in this, right? Yeah, I have a couple videos that hopefully I should have a blade smasher kill video coming out that'll explain this. But I have like a 7.38 second kill of Atom Smasher in Jinshu Maru. I think I have like it's like a 5.6 or something like that with a katana with double airstrike. And then I believe I got down to 4.5 seconds. I got like a 4.5 with the razor here. So I should have that video coming out sometime after this one. And then if you want to watch how we got the character at least to that point, by all means watch the playthrough as I get that coming out. So that's sort of like the gear. Pick what you want. Pick your favorite blades. Any blades work. I go with the armor and stuff like that. We'll go with character here, but I'll also go with skill progression because I always forget it. 60 here, 60 here, 60 here, and 60 here, right? We only go to 35 in net running because we only want the perk point. Feel free to push that farther if you really want to. I don't think that's necessary. The things that we're really after, this doesn't help us unless we decide to use throwing weapons. So if you want to, there's an adjustment to the build we'll go over where you could utilize throwing weapons. If you do that, then this is actually helpful. But this sort of naturally levels up all the time for me. So I get it to 55, and then I go looking for these other things, and it eventually hits 60 regardless. But 55 is what we want because we want to keep our stealth bonuses for 3 seconds after we enter combat, which means that, when we do the smasher fight or anything like that, we pop our optical camo, we start getting our stealth and out of combat bonuses, and then once we are detected and we hit the combat state again, we get to keep those bonuses. So this is super, super fun to push. Incentive Shinobi 60 Sandy is great because we have 40 crit, so if you're running Apogee build, this gives you basically the same crit rating as a Biodyne Berserk, which is nasty, right? It basically means like if you have this and you had an Apogee, which is another 20%, you have a passive 60%. You only have to get 40% from the rest of your things, and Cockatree size is 35%. So that takes you to 95%, which happens to also be in this solo. If they're in melee, you get another 10%. So you're at 105% with one piece of cyberware. Two pieces, Apogee and, Apogee and the Cockatree size. You could use Falcon, and you're still catching to 100%. So melee builds that throw or that use Stabber in their end game. It is great early, but people and melee builds that use Stabber Cyberware in their end game setup are overcapping. So the only reason that you should ever do that is if you're running a weapon with the mod, which I think it's a throwing weapon mod. I don't think it can go on regular blades, but there's a mod that reduces the amount of crit chance you have in favor of giving you like 50% more crit damage. That would be a better mod than Airstrike because Airstrike is 70%, but you have to be leaping, right? The generic crit damage would be better, so if you could double that up, you'd like -30, and you could counteract that with the Stabber. I could, and along with the other bonuses that we get naturally, right, from the gear that we choose. So I could see a world where that happens, but outside of that, you don't need it. You don't need to focus on crit, especially if you're using a Sandy, and you don't need to focus on crit if you're using Berserk, Biodyne Berserk, because it's going to give you the same 40%. So that's how I set up the skill progressions. Those are the main things. The other one is EMP Blast here. This goes off whenever Fury happens. It gives us a bunch of EMP pops. Berserk, when we use Berserk, we want this 30% enemy health threshold. This is huge for our loop and allows us to execute on bosses when they're at like 90% or something like that. And with blades, they're susceptible to these finishers as soon as they start bleeding, and every attack causes bleeding, so this just makes it much, much more likely that we're going to be able to proc a finisher, which is our bread and butter here. And then there's some adrenaline rush stuff here, right, to help us out. So it doesn't decay past a certain amount, we get some health, and so on and so forth. So some sustain and whatnot. In body tree, I take body. Now, this is the setup I like. 20, 20, 20 up here, and 18 here. There is a world where you take 18 in body and you take 20 in cool, right? And in doing so, you don't get pain to gain. Now, I need, for Don't Fear the Reaper runs, right? If I stick to just blades, I don't need this. If I incorporate some of the functions of the Quake and Savage Sling ability here, then I need to be able to utilize the Savage Sling ability, which means I need 20. This also does give us a pretty healthy amount of sustain on our health packs, but if you're comfortable without this, right, by all means, go 20 cool, right, and that'll give you the ability to run knives instead, right, or pistols, right? More than likely, if you're running katanas, I assume you're running in the archetype with throwing knives and stuff like that for your range stuff. So that's super good, right? And because of the way I have body, or we have this set up, you just take all these points out, right? So it ends up being like 13 or 14 points in total. Additionally, you can, if you're in here, this is super important, Dwarf Head. Because of the mitigation chance after you utilize the thing for 2 seconds. You could use things like Counter Shell, right? So like Counter Shell gives you 4 seconds. You could then pop a Dwarf Head for 2 seconds. Counter Shell has like a 6-second cooldown, so it's got 2 seconds of downtime. If you pop the Dwarf Head, right? If you popped your healing function in after the Counter Shell stopped, right? You could continuously stay at 100% all the time, right? Without without anything. You just need Pyromania stacked up, and you need Counter Shell, right? And then you could have no other mitigation chance in your build. So that's a neat little trick you could do. These are percentage base, right? So health regen is slow, right? And in general, like I think this is a static. I don't know if this is a static number or if it's a percentage number. And then you get increased percentages of that base value. So these aren't super great. These three aren't super important in general, right? Because like if you're only generating, I think with chitin it's something like 22 damage per or 22 health per second, somewhere around there, right? If you add in these bonuses, it gets a little bit better, right? And if you have a big health pool, then and lots of damage mitigation, then it can be pretty awesome. But when you're running something like I am, and you're doing like Don't Fear the Reaper at 200, health, this isn't going to be enough, right? And you're not running chitin, so you're not getting the big 200% boost to make that really go off. This really isn't going to be enough to really say anything. We use it because we have a whole bunch of extra points. But if I was point starved and I was trying to get all the throwing weapons and I needed some, I'd take out of here, and I'd take out of here. I would keep Dwarf Head. Like Dwarf Head, this, and these three are basically like the mandatory things. This that is all we need out of here. One, these three, these two. With that, we'll move on to Reflexes. Tailwind, I like Tailwind. I think it's fantastic. It also works really well with our Cyberware. We're utilizing Kinetic Frame. Kinetic Frame wants us to stay above 85% stamina. You have a tendency to drop stamina whenever you start dashing around all the place. But if you're jump dashing, then you're constantly refilling that, and you stay at 100% stamina thanks to Air Dash. Hey yo, this sort of just synergizes. Additionally, we get Strength while in midair. If you needed to drop a point, I would drop Aerial Combat. Here, this would be the secondary one. I would drop Mean Streak first because I don't believe that this, from my testing, this 40% stamina neutralizing the enemy does not apply to leap attacks. You have to be like, you have used the dash button, right? And then kill them in it. And that is weird, right? It's sort of like one of those things. This is sort of like these two, right? This doesn't matter for blades. Blades can do it anyway, so you don't have to worry about it. And then this seems to really only apply to, like if you were in the air and you did it, right? Or and you tossed it, right? Then it would work. But it doesn't, like if you're on the ground and then you do a leap attack to cover the ground, it doesn't count as a dash per se. So this doesn't seem to give you the stamina back. So this would be my first point. This would be my second one. If you remove this one, you have to be a little bit more precise about where you initiate your slides, right, or your jump dashes to. But this one's up to you, kind of up to you. It's preference. Parkour, I like this. These two are basically always mandatory. We want 100% mitigation chance. Wind dashing, and then we want additional range so that we can get there farther. With this sort of like loop, we get and kinetic frame, we get 100% dash during the dash itself. We'll do the jump up, which will remove our stamina, but then we do our dash in the air, which regains our stamina. We'll be at 100%. We'll be above 85%, which will give us basically another make sure that we're at 100% mitigation chance. And then while we're in the air, we get an additional 10%. This says 30, but since our baseline is already 80, we can only go to a maximum of 90. So we max out our mitigation possibilities, or mitigation damage possible there, right? And then we get back, we hit the ground, we dash again, right? We just sort of like loop this for a near 100%, if not near 100% uptime on mitigation chance all the time. Thunderclap is huge. This extra damage for distance traveled is actually really I don't know what the modifier is, but it's actually really big. It says max 50%. That I think that's a separate multiplier because it's sort of like conditional and based off of a thing. I don't believe that goes into your bucket because like when you hit one of these leap attacks, especially if you do it on like a smasher or a boss, you can definitely tell like you're doing significantly more damage than if you weren't. Seeing double is great for counterattacks. We don't do a lot of counterattacking. I would rather just slice and dice through it. Finisher range is huge because this allows both our leap attacks and finishers to sort of have a very similar range. This one gives us movement speed after we do an attack speed after we do a finisher, which is really good. Movement speed is always great, and then attack speed is always good. This one is sort of like what starts the loop. Enemies affected by stagger, stun, blinding, or more specifically bleeding are more susceptible to finishers, right? And then when you get Slaughterhouse, all attacks, counterattacks, deflected bullets apply bleeding, which increases dismemberment chance. Now, we're not necessarily worried about the dismemberment chance. We're worried about all attacks apply bleeding. This means the moment we hit something, it starts bleeding, right? And then bleeding cannot kill, but does make them more susceptible to finishers. So when if we have Berserk on, we have 30% increase to our finisher threshold, right? We already have a static whatever version, or whatever number that is, to finisher threshold that happens at their low health, right? So let's say that's 20%. We have now 30% on top of that. So anything at 50% is now susceptible to our finishers. But anything we touch has, bleeding now. And if it's bleeding, right, both of these create increased threshold, which basically means we get a similar function to the fists, where we get to we can start using finishers at 90% of an enemy's health, and this allows us to perform finishers on basically full health enemies, bosses, stuff like that. So that's sort of like the loop. We attack them, they bleed, we hit a finisher. This gives us more attacks. We attack them, they bleed, we get a finisher, right? Add in the fact that we can dash back and do leap attacks for increased damage, and those give us the ability to close the gap, and we also have longer range. We can do some pretty fun movement style combat with blades. Technical ability, we go full in on technical ability. This is sort of the standard technical function. I do have this in because we were doing some crafting, so this is a point that you don't necessarily need. This is also one of those play points. Ambidextrous is always suggested because it means you're going to be stacking more stats, but not necessarily required, right? Like if you need this point for something else that you want to do, then take this point out, use one hand thing. It's at most at 7.5% melee damage, right? With other modifiers, maybe it's a decent trade-off, but I don't think one Cyberware is make or break on your thing. We get health when we use one charge. We get increased health when it's our last charge. We get instant recharge if we're below or at 25% when we kill an enemy. We're already getting, this gives us 5% with the pain to gain from the body tree, but that stacks for 25% anytime we kill something. So every time we kill 4 enemies, we get a health charge back. And then if during that time frame we hit below 25% and we don't have a charge up, then we get an instant health charge from it. Now, if you do not use the blood pump, this is an ability that I would say we need to acquire and use. If we utilize the blood pump, ignore this. Pyromania, this is how we get our static 50% mitigation chance. We're going to stack this up as much as we can. The way we're stacking this is through Fury gives us EMP blasts. Sandavistan, Berserk, all right, both give us EMP blasts. So depending on which version of the build we pop or we're utilizing, we can do this. This is probably arguably more broken for Sandy, because Sandy gets the turn on and turn off at will. Berserk can only get that function once they have the Quantum Tuner, and even then it's significantly more limited because they have to recharge and can't activate it while they're at 75%, whereas you can with the Sandavistan. And because of that, you can activate Sandy, hit something a couple times, and then turn Sandy off, and then the pop goes off, right? So this can make for some fun things, but both of those, plus we have the Cyberware Shock and Awe, which causes EMP blast to go off whenever we're taking damage. So anytime we are in a fight, we should basically always be stacked up at 5 stacks of Pyromania, which gives us 50% mitigation chance for heat shield. Add in the mitigation chance that we are acquiring out of our cyberware, and then also the stuff where we're doing our dashes and running gives us slippery gives us mitigation chance, etc. We basically are trying to maximize having 100% mitigation chance all the time, so that we get the most damage reduction possible. Friendly fire helps make it so that any of those explosions that we were just talking about don't do as much damage to us, so they're not going to insta-gib yourself or anything like that. This is flat DR. This helps us with cyberware capacity. Maybe I haven't looked at any reasons or ways that you would set this up to go to 9 intelligence. I'm sure it's possible. You could do a 15 cool, 15 strength, and end up in a 9 intelligence for an extra bit of cyberware capacity, but it would really make you one focused. You wouldn't be able to apply knives and stuff like that, right? So I don't think it's as fun. I think 356 is fine. If you need 360, go get 9 intelligence, right? And sacrifice some probably body and cool points. And then you have cyberware cooldown reduction, which is good, and then we have cyberware duration increase, which is also good. We also get these, I think, out of the skill progression tree in the engineer section, some smaller versions of these, or equal versions of these as well. And then cyberware capacity. This one, like I said, not necessary when you're not crafting, but we've been doing some crafting. In the cool tree, I get creeping death all the time. Anytime I'm running an optical camo build, I get creeping death. No exceptions, right? This is awesome. With that being said, you also get some mitigation chance out of feline footwork, and you get mitigation chance out of here. This total is 30% when you're crouching, and then it increases if you're moving. I think it is. Oh no, I think that's somewhere in here. But regardless, this is 30%, right? When you're crouched. So hey, if you want to play a super stealth build that has a mitigation chance by being crouched, by all means. There are some other fun sort of interactions you can kind of do with that, with immovable force and unexposed, right? And then not moving, right? So you can get a whole bunch of little gimmick stuff out of mitigation chance out of here by not moving and whatnot. But we're not after that. We're after creeping death. All right, which gives us movement speed and health and stamina. This just sort of the health. If we're in berserk build, the health is sort of less of a concern. If we're in sandy build, then this is all great. But we also want quick getaway, so that when we neutralize an enemy while we're undetected, we get another 10%. So all in all, this can if you're really just murdering people without being detected as a ninja katana assassin, or even mantis assassin, right? You're getting 30% movement speed whenever you're doing this. So that's huge. We have to use this to get to this, and then this just makes it so that if somebody is about to detect you and you smack them in the mouth, then they think twice about it. Intelligence is dump stat. We don't put anything in here. Relics, this is my standard setup for relics, right? Get vulnerabilities, get jailbreak, and then pick whatever weapon you are. You can do this with, what is this, 3, 3, 7, 8, right? So you need 8 relic points. I get this one for another 3, so you need 11, right? Because I want to be able to just disappear whenever I want to be able to pop optical camo in combat and just disappear. So that's what that is, but we get enough points to be able to do it for all of them. So we go ahead and get them. I don't get this one because in Don't Fear the Reaper runs, because the moment is you start to be detected. If I hit optical camo, or I'm crouching or something like that, and somebody's searching for me and they start to detect me, it slows down time. If that happens to happen when there's a scripted event, whether it's Johnny talking or an elevator coming up or down or something like that, then it slows time and I lose seconds. So for my runs, my speed runs and stuff like that, I don't use it, and so I've just gotten used to not using it all, right? Reflex Tuner is and Revulsor are some of the most fun things to run on characters, whether you're doing Berserk or doing Apogee, right? That can be a whole lot of fun, but it's not applicable for the end game state that I'm sort of like optimizing towards. And then, let's see. Is there anything else here? Oh, yeah, Cyberware. Cyberware. We came here. Oh.
Got an infection? Maybe a moment's reflection.
No.
Oh, God, shut up. There we go. Cyberware, this is how I have it set up. We are maximizing movement speed, right? As you can sort of tell with Relic and Adreno Trigger. Just maximum movement speed. I like running Mantis Blades whenever I'm running a Blades build because I enjoyed Mantis Blades when I started, right? And it was the first build that I ever did and in the game, and I love them. I do miss some of the animations from the originals, but whatever. Cockatrice Eyes, 35% chance to crit, sort of basically mandatory. And then I would argue that the field visual interface is mandatory. It's less mandatory if you're running Berserk, but here's the problem. If you're running Berserk, it costs less than Apogee does. Apogee costs 44, Biodine Berserk costs 20, right? So you have space, the Cyberware cost, for the deep field visual interface. Awesome. Get the extra crit damage. However, this is the one that has crit damage in gobs, in a big, massive chunk. Because of that, crit damage itself is devalued comparatively to, say, like raw melee damage, right? Or stealth damage, or weak spot damage, etc., right? It makes those other stats even more important because we already have this big modifier for crit damage. So this becomes less important. But if we go to an Apogee, we only get 20% crit damage and 20% headshot damage. Now, the headshot damage is nice because that is a modifier that is hard to come by and comes in low amounts, right? Even optimizing it, you might get to like 40 or 50%, right? So this is, 50% of what you can even, sort of like get when optimizing it. So this is huge in headshot, right? But does that make up for 100% crit damage? I don't think so. Even though it's a separate multiplier, I don't think it catches that far. So, but the slow time is super fun. It's great across the board. Until you meet an enemy that also has a Sandy, right? Then it's sort of mediocre, and you have to like figure out how to play on their level again. Like what does this game look like and when they're just as fast as I am? Oh no, right? And so you sort of get spoiled with the slow time thing, and it can again hurt your overall gameplay. But like there's a bunch of like options here. Take away the Adreno convert trigger, go to a blood pump, right? Make this a converter, remove the kinetic frame, go to bionic joints instead. Right, or maybe you take away the trigger and you take you leave this and you put this into an epimorphic skeleton if you have space or whatnot. We have the quantum tuner, right? So like you can really sort of be fluid with what you want and how you want this to set up. I think you definitely want the crit, at least for this setup. You want the Biodine Berserk for the 40%, and you want this for the other 35. If you do that, you've got 75% crit base. The other things that are happening in the build and like in the environment functions are going to take care of the rest of the crit for your function. Because of this devalues, especially on Blades build, Stabber. Right? You do not need Stabber in anything but the early game. In the early game, this is amazing. But in the late game, this is just over cap. Right? If you have it at 5+, right, it's 20% crit chance. Right? But if I have 40% here, 75% here, 20% here, that's 95%. I'm getting 10% out of Berserk or out of Solo Tree. That's another that puts you at 105, right? And you get percentage off of anything that's reflex attuned, right? So that's 2% crit chance, right? Like this is damage. I think this is increased duration for our movement speed, right? Like there's other pieces here that are giving us like different crit chance, stuff like that. So like we get so much crit chance. Like this character is, what is he at? He's at 60% crit without popping Biodine Berserk. And this does not include the solo 10% for them being within close range, which means we're at 100, like when we pop our Berserk or our Sandevisant, since Shinobi gives us 40%, when we pop this, we're at 110% chance to crit, flat out. So unless you're doing a weapon with the modifier that reduces your chance to crit by like 15% in favor of giving you 50% crit damage, right? And you have 2 of those mods that get you to 130%, right? If you're using that, then Stabber nullifies that because you have that extra 10% from solo and you have 20% from there, right? It makes it so that you maintain 100% crit while also being able to do that. But outside of that function, Stabber's great early game for passive crit and allowing you to sort of like gain that function and bridge that gap. But once you're in late game, get rid of it. You don't need it. Axolotl is cooldown. This is sort of like a super combo, Axolotl and Quantum Tuner. All right, this gives you cooldown per kill. This one allows us to pop Berserk. This one allows us to kill really fast, right? And so like we kill a lot of things really fast. Our Quantum Tutor is always good. Our Berserk drops, it refreshes. Axolotl is sitting there refreshing our Berserk and our Quantum Tuner as we kill some more and keep the loop on repeat. As long as there's enemies, we'll always be able to pop our Berserk in and out anytime we want. Now, Quantum Tuner doesn't seem to affect optical camo, so this is still limited, unfortunately. Axolotl does. So like kills do that, and then there's other things in the tree that, or in this like skill progression and whatnot, that help sort of like alleviate that as well. Mandatory things: micro rotors, dense marrow, and then I would argue deep field visual, and then cockatrice eyes, right? So those are the 4 that I would say that you are gonna have. I would always have Neofiber in basically every build because it's like the only place we get mitigation chance passively. And then I'll make the argument that Spring Joists are a mandatory thing, even for non speed builds or whatnot. I'd put these in tank builds because of the mitigation strength. But if you're making a full tank and you're not doing this, I don't know what you're doing, but hopefully it's living, right? So let's that's the Biodine or the Berserk setup. Let's go over the Apogee setup. And because Apogee is more expensive, we have to get rid of some things. We have to get rid of the Quantum Tuner, and we have to put on the Apogee. We then pull in Self-Ice, and we can then use Adreno Trigger, and we're a little light here. We can sort of choose what we want. We can change this if we want to. We can just throw on the old Blood Pump, and then go with the handle wraps, right? And then because we're close, we can get the coprocessor. Sort of pick and choose what you want. As long like this gets us right to the 356 cap. You don't have to go all the way to the 356. You can go to less, right? But we can do these things. If you want to do, I don't think you need Quantum Tuner with Apogee, right? Because once I pop Apogee, I kill enough people that I have the next Apogee basically ready the moment that it ends. And the only exception to this is when I don't have a bunch of people to kill in that window where I had slow time. So that effectively I think is like one fight Smasher, right? And so against Smasher, okay, you probably want Apogee and Quantum Tuner potentially if it's going to be a long fight. But I'd argue if you're fighting Smasher for a long time, it's going to hurt, right? Like it's just going to suck, right? And unfortunately, he has a Sandy too. So this loses a lot of its effectiveness comparatively to, say, Berserk. They can ignore some mechanics because, like, you can prevent yourself from dying. You can stand inside of his, onslaught of rockets. You can tank damage. He can smack you in the face, right? And it just pushes you back instead of sending you to the to the reload screen, stuff like that. And net running obviously gets to, like, wipe his memory or something like that. Apogee's supposed to, like, its whole gimmick is I slow time. And then he goes, by the way, so do I. Right? And then, and so now you, like, I think this is one of probably, if not the hardest way. No, Chrome compressor is the hardest way. This is probably the second hardest way to fight Atom Smasher. Right? Berserk is the best. Cyberdeck is second best. Right? Apogee, I think, is third. And then last, obviously, is Chrome compressor because you don't have anything. Now, if you want to do Quantum Tuner, you can. It just takes sacrifices, right? So, I hit the right click. It just takes sacrifices. So we take this. We have enough? Not quite. Take this out. We now have enough, right? So you could do this with this setup, right? But now you're sort of like missing things, right? Like I think the only real way to do this, right, is to drop the deep field visual scanner, right? And the hard part about that is, like, it's so good, right? Because of the crit damage, and now that you don't have Berserk, right? Crit damage actually has, or the Biodyne Berserk crit damage actually has a premium, right? Because you'll have, if you have 100% melee, you don't have 100% crit damage. You'll only have 100% crit damage when you pop this, and even then, you're probably not getting it all the way to 100% if you drop the deep field visual, right? So, and crit damage is really, really hard to come by in Cyberware, right? Like, you get, I think the highest crit damage increases I've ever seen are like 2% or 2.4% or something like that, 2.5%. So if it's 2.5%, at most you get 20 pieces here, right? You're at what, 50? Yeah. You're like 50% increase to crit damage. Now that'd be huge, right? But it's going to come at the cost of, like that's a high tier mod, right? Are you going to get 7% melee and 2% crit, and then ignore stealth damage, which has the ability to go over 100, or ignore weak spot damage, which has the ability to also go to 50? Like, and so at that point you're talking about triple statted mods, right? Like one of these, right, with electrical damage, right? But you're talking about getting one of these. Where are you? There you are. Like melee damage, stealth damage, and headshot damage, right? And changing that headshot damage instead over to critical damage, and then also max rolling it. I don't know how to tell you this, but that's insane. That's crazy, right? So, can you make this work? Absolutely. I think you probably have to come over here and get bio joints. You have to just sort of like concede that you're not going to have the mitigation that we were talking about, and that we sort of have set up so diligently, right? We're basically uncompromising on the deep field visuals. We're then going to be able to run a threat evac here, and then we'll be able to, we're at 355, we'll pick up the hands, and I would probably take ambidextrous off. And that gets you Apogee with Quantum Tuner. You could make the argument, if you prefer the Falcon, right? You could take a Falcon, put that in there, and then you have the space for like a Smart Link weapon and coprocessor, right? Or some sort of like combo there, right? Where you get you don't get handle wraps, right? But it'd be just these two. I don't know why that didn't register. thinks this is a 0. This is a -2. Neat. So this is actually a bug where this isn't going to count it for whatever reason, right? And then it's going to say this, and then you adjust all your stuff until you get it right, and then this fails to work and won't go in the slot anymore. So, with that being said, you could set it up like this. You could, I think you stay with the apogee if you're looking to maximize your power. You're looking at your tattoo, and then you kind of have to like figure out your options from here. There's an argument to say maybe you like this is going to be the tattoo. Maybe you choose something like subdermal armor and just say I'm going to take the armor, right, and ignore this, and then I have a little bit more space for here, right? That's up to you. If you can make, and maybe that allows you the kinetic frame back. If you can make this work, right, or make some version of this work where you get the Sandy, the axolotl, and the quantum tuner, even if you're below, right, on your Cyberware, like I said, I would keep the deep field visual interface. This is a lot easier if you just drop this. If you drop this, then you get whatever hands you want, and you get the regular visual cortex. You have a lot more space. You grab your kinetic frame, you grab your tattoo, and then I think you have space for, heck, you have space for a shock absorber if you want. So like you could have heal on kill, right? I think that's the same. No, that's 10. Not that one. Go with this one. I already own it. Right, so like this gets you pretty solid, pretty close, 355, right? Now you've got passive heals. These can overfill your adrenaline bar. You've got all these things, etc., right? And so is the trade-off worth it? I don't necessarily think so, because using the apogee puts such a premium on critical strike damage that I would say that you ideally want the critical strike damage rather than this other version with all these things. But you will get more stealth damage. Like you get a whole Cyberware piece is 18% crit damage worth 7% melee and 6 and 6, right? 6 melee, 6 stealth. That's sort of judgment call, up to you. Yeah, and now, did I fit? Whatever. I'll actually showcase it like this. All right, so now for the 2 tips. The first one, right, is the easiest to say, or is easiest to show. This machete is super rare. It is very, very difficult to find a 5++ with 2 empty mod slots. Because of that, I didn't know that I was going to be farming for this when I started off my Blades build, so I didn't set up my farming route to optimize getting this specific item, and I went through, it does drop in Pacifica, right? So on my Pacifica route, it does drop. However, I wasn't looking for it, so if I got one during my farming, I definitely turned it into a component. So be on the lookout for this weapon. It has the highest base damage of any other blade in the game. I believe it's the highest base damage of them all. There is an iconic version, but this one has mod slots, so we can put airstrikes on it, and double airstrike on this thing is absolutely silly with leap strike. It is absolutely silly. With that being said, it's super rare to get to drop, right? So if I had to do it again, rather than sit in Pacifica and find the one person that I could that had 100% drop rate, right, and then kill them over and over and over again, where they either dropped it broken or they dropped it in some sort of upgraded version, and then wait, and just repeat kill them with reloads for 10 hours, right, 15 hours, some whatever. I've lost track of how much time I did to get this thing, right? But instead of doing that, I would have just gone to 6th Street. 6th Street, the guys who come up in melee typically have this, right? So most of their thugs, right, their melee guys, will come up and have this specific weapon. which means they have a chance to do it, which means you have a significantly higher chance of having this particular thing drop, which means you have a higher chance of it dropping with this setup, the 5++ and the two open mods. Because of that, if I had to do all of this over again and do this setup again, I would find or build my own 6th Street loop to kill 6th Street guys that had a higher probability of dropping this weapon. And I would do that for all of my component farming, for all of my skill progression farming, everything, at the very least until I got this weapon. And then once I had it, I'm happy, right? Once I have it, I'm happy. But this took forever to get. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2, I've seen this in a comment of another video, but I've never seen it. I learned it on my own. What I did was I took Yucky Bubbles' video where he explains finisher spamming, which is where he basically like gets out the old blades and then he gets the old max tech going, brings them in, and then he groups them all up, right? Looks away from them, and then tosses some EMP grenades into them. Once they're all grouped up, the EMP grenades prep their health, right? And then he pops his berserk and whatnot, turns around, and he starts executing. He jump, execute, jump, execute, jump, execute. And one of the things that he explains in his video is that when you jump, right, and you do the execute, you get a faster version of the execute itself, right? It happens quicker, right? So in my leveling, I tried to sort of like incorporate this from the leap dash attacks and stuff like that, and other things from his videos. I was like, I'm going to try these out, right? They all worked, right? But one of the things that worked really well was I was trying to set up this finisher spamming thing, and I was like, I don't know, like if I'm like hitting every guy one time each is sort of a problem. Then I found out that once you utilize the finisher, right? So for example, if we kill this person and we get that cop over there to come after us, right? This cop should, if we can prep her, nope. We gotta prep somebody.
He's on.
Here we go, for an execute. So we're just gonna bring him to us. But if we prep somebody for an execute and then we do the jump execute, we'll do the faster animation. So we'll go like this, and that animation right there. So that's our faster animation, right? Now, the other part of this is let's find another one. You, come here. I don't want you to dismember. You. This is the normal animation. So that is how long that the game thinks. That's how long the game thinks that I'm supposed to be in this finisher animation, right? Is that longer version, right? So it could be that one where you stab him in the gut, or the one where you stab him in the neck 4 times, 1, 2, 3, 4 with each, 1, 2 hand, you punch it with your hand, right? However, those take significantly longer than the jump finisher animation, right? Which is the downward slash, right? Sometimes you get that when you're standing, right? But you can force it by causing the jump, which is one of the things that he was showing in his video, right? Doing that means that you are now in finisher animation, but you're finished with your animation before the game thinks you should be. And it uses the in-game time. And so what we're going to do is prep this guy, hit that, and then slow time. And then as you notice, those were both finishers. That's a finisher. That's a finisher. We're done. We prep. That's a finisher. That's a finisher. Right? And we can do that, right? So like we can do that over and over and over again. We do this, go up like this, go 1, prep, we slow time, that's a finisher. That's a finisher. That's a finisher. That's not, because we're out of time now. Right? And so like we can repeat this over and over and over as long as we can recognize that. Finisher. 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 Now we're in. Now we've got max tech coming, right? There we go. Oh, they're here. Alright, we need to prep. There's one. Now these are finishers. Like we just 3-shot. We just 3-shot those max stat guys because we get to spam finisher on each of them. And each one of our strong attacks is count or gets the finisher damage bonuses. Oh, hey. Hey, let me move. There we go. Now we slow. Finishers. 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 Nah, that's a new prep. Finisher. 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 Oh, missed him, apparently. And there we go. The ability to chain finishers, right? We can do it like this too. We'll do it with the Byakko. Right, we do one, we'll go like this, that hit that. Finisher, finisher. There. And we didn't even have to stop time for him. We do one there. Prep. Finisher. 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 Get prep. Slow time. It is just silly. And they all get the extra bonus damage from being a finisher. And all they are is regular strong attacks. So, I hope that information, is helpful for you guys and anything that you're trying to do. I hope you get to use it to your best of your abilities. I'll call this an episode. And we'll get the heck out of here before Max Tech catches us. Go inside, close the door, they don't know where we are, it's all done. Perfect, we'll call that a finish on the build guide. Hope it was helpful. If you found it entertaining or informative, give it a like, give it a follow, whatever you want, right? I'll see you in the next one.